I'm going to show you how to take apart your Nova chuck. How's this? Um, the hang on, let me get all my stuff out of here. I don't think they're much different. I've only taken apart a Nova chuck though, so I don't know. But I have a record power and it looks just like it. So my first inclination is no, that it's not any different. Let's see, I need that too. Okay. So on the Nova chuck, basically on this one, there's a snap ring in here, and the snap ring is holding in this black piece, this black plastic piece, which is what's actually holding all the gears in place. What you have to do is you need to find the set screw that's holding the sleeve in. You know, when you put your sleeve in there for your lathe, then there's a set screw that you can tighten to hold it in place. Well, that set screw is also keeping this plastic piece from coming out. The first one of these I took apart, I spent like an hour trying to pull that black thing out, and I had the snap ring off, and I'm like, I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't come out of there. And then I realized is the set screws in there holding it in place. So there's a set screw in there. So I know, I do. So once you get the set screw out of there, you know, I pulled the jaws off already. There's a snap ring here. So get the snap ring out of there. And now this is the hardest part about getting these things apart. That thing still comes off kind of hard. There's no way to really grab it. So what I typically do is try to get underneath one edge of it here and try not to jab yourself doing it and try to get this lifted up. Like that. So now I got it started there, and then whoops, here, let me put that back where you can see it. So I got this side pulled up there, and I can get this under there now. And then once I get this other one under there, and you can do this with just a couple screwdrivers too, but kind of pull that thing around. And then it pops off there. And then it falls back in there and you can't get it out again here. Come on. And it's got like little holes here, but they don't really do anything. Come on. No, not these holes. In here, there's like two holes that are right next to it that you would think would release something, but they don't. All right, I'm gonna get this out of there. Okay, so there's that piece. If you ruin this piece, which on one of mine it was really damaged by the time I screwed around with the Allen wrench, you can just order these for like $12 from Nova. So I'd ordered one for one of my other ones. So now once you have that off, you can see your gears in here. You can see all the pieces and parts and how they work. This piece keeps these from coming out. This slides down and it indexes them in place. So once you pull that out, you can get these out of there. And then you can drop this ring out, which this ring rides on these grooves in there. So that's kind of how all that works. Now what happens, and I had like, I bought a couple of used chucks and they were way worse than the chucks I already own. And I could hardly turn them. And one of them, and it might have been this one, I don't think it was this one, but what had happened is these corners were all bent over. Like they ran the tool rest into the chuck while it was coming around, hit it with the tool rest, and it bent over all these corners and pinched all these things in place. so they would no longer slide. I had to hammer them out with my punch. Um, so once I had them all out, I had to go in here and file these edges again. I got in there with a file and I filed all the edges until it got to the point where I could slide these in and out like nothing. Yeah, they should just slide in and out. And if they don't slide in and out very easily, then you still got some work to do. Something is still wrong. These are not numbered. No. The only thing that's really numbered is the actual jaws. So, and on some of the newer ones, I don't even think the jaws are numbered on some of the newer ones. Yeah, you're right. I noticed that on mine after I had it on, I saw, oh, it's got just little dots there. So then you can, once you get these all apart, there's a lot of debate out there on what you should use to lubricate these. Here's like dry lube you can use. I like to put a little bit of a 3-in-1 oil on this thing because it is completely shielded and it's not going to pick up too much dust. So I like to put a little 3-in-1 oil on that, just to keep it lubing, moving well. But not a whole lot because any kind of real oil is going to attract dust. So, but yeah, I think that's what this is. Well, this is silicone based, but it's dry. You know, I think any kind of dry will work on there. But you got to, these all need to go back in place here because you got to make sure these are even when you put this ring back in so that they all move in and out evenly. So get them all in there and kind of get them where it looks like they're centered. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to drop that onto the back side there. Am I bleeding? Is that blood? Okay. When you're colorblind, you don't know you're bleeding. Okay, and I can see down in here, I can see the jaws. Are lined up with my gear in there. See what I'm talking about down there? So so now I know they're lined back up again. So now I can put these pieces back in. And then at this point, you can do whatever you want for lubricant. Especially on this Nova, this is all sealed, so dirt's not going to really get in here. Those G3s, it's all open. I would be very careful what I put in that. But on the other hand, you can grab those G3s and spray it out with some brake or metal parts cleaner and just clean it back out again without having to disassemble it, because you don't have this piece in the way. So this would be a good time to spray something in there. While I have it apart, I'm going to do this. I have WD-40 too. I'll use that sometimes on my. But I mean, you should be able to turn that very easily when you're done. So that looks good there. So now I can put this piece back in and it snaps in, not real hard. I mean, it goes in a heck of a lot easier than it comes out. So, and then put your snap ring back on. And put my little Allen key back in here. It's only threaded on one side, so find the side that's threaded. It's threaded on this side. And tighten that down because that's kind of holding this piece on. I put these pieces in with epoxy because I don't want this thing to ever come loose on me. It's, when I first started turning, you're trying to get your chuck off the lathe and this thing stays on. Yeah. No, it just goes in one side. It's 180 degrees one way or the other. It's got little hooks that go down over top of this, so that there's a groove that went over top of this piece on both sides. So once you get it lined up, it just falls in there. So, and then that's it. This thing's cleaned out and working beautifully. So, but that's the big thing to look for is bent over edges. I had one chuck too that I dropped on the floor and it had a rubber mat like that, and it put a hole right through the rubber mat, and that chuck never worked the same again. And that was when I looked in there, and I didn't even have to take it apart. I could see that I crimped over one of the corners when it fell, and that's what was making it work hard. So I just got a file and filed off the edge of that. The another thing with if you got on your jaws, you don't tend to get lacquer inside it here. Put this on the front camera, will you? There you go. You don't tend to get lacquer. I mean, I'll get lacquer inside these joints here. The best way to clean that lacquer and shellac off is just to set this thing in a bucket of lacquer cleaner, lacquer thinner, let it soak, and it still doesn't just come off with a brush. You've got to get in there and scrape it off with like a putty knife, you know. So, but I've heard oven cleaner works good on that. It'll clean them right up, but I've never tried it. But mineral spirits doesn't work. I know that kerosene doesn't work. I've tried the different things, and I just finally just break down, soak it. I get a bucket of lacquer thinner and just start soaking all my chucks in. While I'm working on one, I'll take the other one apart, and so basically I'll spend a day or an afternoon and do all my chucks and get them all working new again, and then hopefully they'll work for another year. So, oh, not that often. Yeah, as needed. Probably every 3 or 4 years, I'll finally break down and clean them, you know. So I have one that I use a lot for when I'm lacquering, and those jaws get really dirty. So I'll soak the jaws and put on another set, you know, because every time you buy a chuck, you get another set of the 50 millimeter jaws. So I think I still have a brand new set that I haven't gotten to yet. So I slowly just cycle through those to try to keep them clean. But yeah, I don't probably clean them as much as I should. So
Doug, could
yeah.
you summarize what George said?
Online, he was saying that if you're running your lathe like at slow speeds, you know, 300-400, and you hear a rattle, and you're like, oh man, what's rattling? It's these pieces here. And they start doing that. It's no big deal. It's just those pieces there rattling around. So is that it? Think we're good. That concludes this meeting. We got to do raffle.